What's good, folks? To another episode of the Cover One Film Room, part, of course, of the Cover One Sports Network. I am one of your two hosts this evening, Anthony Prohaska, joined by Erik Turner. Erik, hopefully the technical difficulties that we had right before we went live here are no longer a thing, and we
Yeah,
can
it's
roll
not
full
looking good.
steam.
It's
No, it's
not.
not
Oh, there,
looking
there
good.
we
Oh, there
go.
we go.
There it
There
is.
we go. Well, a little Wednesday craziness, a little Wednesday wonkiness for us here with some technical difficulties, but we have problem solved. We have persevered.
Mm-hmm.
We have powered through to come to you folks for this episode of the Cover One Film Room, where Erik, we continue on in this theme of building the foundation for this Buffalo Bills offseason, taking a look at positions of need. First we started out with, reviewing the past season offensively and defensively, players, individual evaluations, schematics, philosophy, style, all that kind of stuff, coaching staff pieces. Now we're starting to move the wheels forward a little bit more. Last week, we focused on the defensive side of the ball with our free agent wish list. We each picked three guys and dove into some game tape to talk about what about their skill sets that we liked for the Buffalo Bills in terms of their fit. This week, we focused on the offensive side of the ball, and we have a little bonus because the NFL Combine just finished, so there's some issues to touch on there. So a lot to get to in this episode tonight, and a lot that we're looking forward to.
Yeah, the combine it's a fun time of year. It's exciting because you get to see some of the on-field workouts. You get to see a lot of the data that we love to collect so that we can kind of whittle down some of the targets for the Bills, because we look at the historical data and who they have worked with, who they have drafted, who they have brought in and signed. And we can kind of compare and find parameters and archetypes for these guys. That's the best part for me is, yes, watching and scouting them on film is great. Watching them on the field at the combine and how they're competing with those other guys at their positions is fun. But I like trying to whittle down because, hey, this isn't our full-time job. And
That's
watching film, as you guys know, we won't put out our opinion unless we've watched film on those players, whether they're prospects, whether they're free agents, whether they're guys on the team already. So we can't watch film on all these players. So we kind of have to whittle it down a little bit, position by position, to watch some film and watch a few games of each of these guys. So the combine is one of those events that allows you to create and compile those lists. And so it was fun to watch all of that, but it's even more fun for me to kind of start to whittle down those lists on who we can watch, because that's when it gets really exciting. And when you're talking, projecting these prospects into the Bills, onto the Bills team.
Oh yeah, 1,000%. I love the combine. I have for years, but especially now, living in this space that we live in here with Cover One, it's such a helpful tool to be able to kind of connect some dots or tie up some loose ends with guys you've already watched. I always make notes like, I'm interested to see how this guy tests, or this guy, his game speed is a little like I want to see what he looks like in the timed events, or how does he show up during on-field workouts, or how does he test for strength and agility and all these pieces. Or on the flip side, guys who I haven't watched yet, I'm making notes during the combine.
Yeah.
And, oh, Timmy looks tremendous in drills. Let's see what it looks like on the game tape. I had a couple of wide receivers who I made notes of during the combine and was super pumped to go watch film. And then I watched tape and I was just let down because sometimes those things don't match up. But yeah, it's a real nice litmus test in a variety of ways, and kind of like a filter for us to continue to maintain efficiency moving forward in this process. Because again, there are a lot of prospects and there is a lot to get to, in the combine is one of those tools that really kind of helps us whittle it down, like you said.
Yeah, and I know we're talking about free agency and we're talking about the offensive side of the ball tonight, but my one combine takeaway when it comes to that time in Indy, I just feel like, for many years we've been talking on the defensive side of the ball about positionless football. And while I think there are more and more guys coming into the league out of college, into the NFL, that are hybrid type players, I think that trend has already, it's been, the road has been paved already when it comes to that. But I feel like now the NFL, just where it is evolving on the defensive side of the ball with those two high structures and all that, I think that's the next step for defenses. A lot of these defenses are playing those two high looks, but the next step of disguising those two high looks and changing things and changing that picture pre to post snap, I think has a lot to do with these hybrid type players, guys that can play safety, guys that can play corner, whether it's boundary or in the slot, and having multiple guys that can play those positions, whether it's a split field look, a post safety, or a slot corner. The more guys you have that can play those slots and roles, the more confusion you can cause for the offensive side of the ball, and the more confusion that you can cause for the quarterback. So I feel like this draft, and Brandon Beane talked about it briefly, that there are a lot of these type of guys, and I would have to agree. There's a lot of guys that can play corner, nickel, and safety, not just projecting a nickel to safety because maybe he doesn't fit up the run all that well, or he didn't run as fast as some people expected. But I just think that guys are able to play the safety position. It's not safety is not that position like it used to be. Not just a safety net. These guys are involved in all the run fits, very much like the nickel defender. And so with those two high looks, you have to be able to play the run because, again, they're filling that C gap in quarters coverage. They're coming down, filling that C gap against the run. So I think that's what I came away from when I look at the combine, some of the on the field workouts, and how guys test it, is that yes, the hybrid players are there, but it's not the like upper echelon athletes that are playing those positions and those hybrid roles. I see guys that are typical nickel guys that also can now play safety, which can really, really cause confusion for offenses.
Somebody like, I don't know, Jartavius Martin, perhaps.
That's my guy.
I'm so happy that you're really on board with him now. Like he was one of my top guys to watch going into the Senior Bowl. He was the first person I talked to at the Senior Bowl because I was so excited. But he represents kind of that ideology, right? Like the idea of you want multiplicity. You want to do anything that you can to confuse the offense, to make them not be able to figure out what is going on. And we know quarterbacks use safeties to ID coverage. But if you've got 3 or 4 defensive backs out there and you don't know who's the safety and who's the slot, and if they're going to play too high or single high or what kind, if you've got, we saw the amoeba fronts for so long with different body types up front. And it was how do we determine who's going to be the rusher? If you can create some semblance of amoeba, back ends where you don't know, right? Then
that's what's so cool about that, football and how it evolves. Like you said, it's a great point. The amoeba fronts is always about the front, confusing the protection, confusing the quarterback from the front, from the trenches. But now it's flipped. It's flipped to the back end, which is so much fun for guys like us that love studying not just the film and the players and prospects, but also scheme.
Yes, the trends and seeing, there's always that pendulum shift, and it's usually with the offense, but defense has started to take it back a little bit. They found success with those too high structures and limiting explosives and finding a way to stretch out zone runs and really kind of limit the explosiveness and the big plays from offenses. And even the minor tweaks that we saw this year with more offenses starting to run the ball more, or using more gap scheme runs because defenses were, suddenly built to stop these zone attack offenses. And, the defensive linemen, especially on the interior, we're getting slimmer, to rush the passer.
Yeah.
And then now it's maybe you just want to get some of these bigger guys now in the interior because you're trying to play light boxes and you need somebody on the interior to control the interior. And it's just which way does the pendulum swing and how does it swing? And the combine allows you to start to, again, put those breadcrumbs together and put the puzzle pieces together with the film in IDing a lot of these players that will be the future, puzzle pieces to these trends and these schematic changes that we're identifying now that'll probably be, in full swing a couple years from now. And these players will be fully entrenched in that.
Yeah. And so I think that is one thing I took away from the combine, but let's put that aside. Let's move on to the topics for tonight, the free agency on the offensive side of the ball, the free agent class. Let's talk about this class. It's tough because we all know the Bills are up against the cap now. Josh Allen, we talked about it last week. It applies on the offensive side of the ball too, which is why a lot of people are saying they need to draft up front, some offensive linemen, some targets for Josh. You're going to have to change your approach, which is totally true. But before you can get to the draft and all that, you have to plug holes on the offensive side of the ball. Certain positions up front, wide receiver. But I want to get your thoughts on this class overall. because I have a feeling that we're in agreement that this class, again, maybe also because of how much money they don't have to spend this year. That's a big factor. But what about this class this year? What do you think about the free agents that we have to pick from?
It's not ideal on the offensive side of the ball, to say the least. From last week's episode where we focused on the defense, it was, I think, harder for both of us to narrow down our top three each. And they're like so much so that we had an honorable mentions because there were other guys that we liked. I feel like it was the opposite here with offense. It really felt like squeezing blood from a stone at times. And I think when you're looking at the offensive free agent class as a whole, especially in regards to the positions of need for the Buffalo Bills, there's not a lot of depth, but there's also not a lot of strength at the top. So the top tier guys aren't necessarily guys that are in the top tier for their position. They're just kind of there by default. And so that means you've got top tier guys who are going to get paid more than they should. And then the middle tier guys in free agency are still getting paid more than they should. Like it's a situation, if you're the Buffalo Bills, where, defensively, I feel comfortable addressing a lot of needs in free agency. Offensively, the options are more limited given who's available and what the potential cost is going to be and how that factors into the value.
Yeah, so as you can see on Spot Track, I sorted by market value because those are usually the guys that are going to get the decent contracts. And so you can see just some of the names. There are some good names. Obviously Sumalo from the Eagles. Schweitzer is more of a center and a really good one. He's such an underrated center that no one really even talks about. Reisner is actually not bad, but you can see Ben Powers is there. But just look at some of the names, all right, and just make note of them. And, their salaries from last year. And obviously the market values are going to be high. They're going to be in the 10, the 12 or a mil a year market value for a lot of these guys, especially when you're talking the top ones here. But if you look back, again, I just want to compare this class to last year's class just at guard, because that's obviously a position we all would agree that they could upgrade. So you look at some of those names, and then you look at some of these names that signed last year: Scherf, Tomlinson, Kappa, James Daniels, Austin Corbett, Glowinski, Norwell, very good player. And so you can see there were some really good names at the top of that list. And then some of the mid-tier guys, obviously the Bills ended up with Saffold. They ended up with GVR, Van Roten there on the bottom. So you can see there are some guys that commanded good contracts, but they were also really steady players. And even in hindsight, when you look at their season, they actually all played quite well.
Yeah, like relative to what these guys got paid, like it felt like the value was pretty spot on for especially the guys at the top, like what Brandon Sheriff did. Tomlinson, we talked about earlier, I don't think he necessarily hit what you thought he would, but he was still a fine enough floor. And then what you got from Corbett, what you got from Norwell, Kappa, and Tampa. And then again, you're comparing it or juxtaposing it with this year, and it's just not ideal. Like if you need to address guard this year, the top tier guys, you're looking at the Ben Powerses of the world or the Samalos of the world or Dalton Reisner, potentially. And those guys aren't bad, but they're also like limited. Like Ben Powers has a chance to get paid really well and put into a tier financially that he might not necessarily deserve to be in. I know that sounds a bit harsh, but you've got someone who, even like Selmalo, like I like him, but I watch his tape. I don't think he's a 12 mil a year guard. And you know what? Honestly, because he's, depending on what scheme you're running, he's like the top guard available. There's a chance he might get higher than that. And maybe he creeps into like the $14-15 million a year range, which I don't think the value is there. Like Reisner gives you a good floor, but I watched him against some of the upper echelon teams like the 49ers, and there's reps where he really struggles. Again, I think he represents an upgrade from Roger Saffold, but just because someone's an upgrade from Roger Saffold doesn't mean that they're a good guard. No,
or worth 10 mil or so.
Correct.
That's the thing.
And that's how you get into a problem area. Like when you start paying guys for need, then all of a sudden you're hamstrung because you're stuck paying guys who aren't necessarily worth it. And it's the same thing when you're drafting for need. You're not necessarily taking the right player or the best player. You're just taking it because it's a need, and that might not be the right avenue for your team. And it muddies the waters a lot.
Yeah, and I know there's a bunch of names being thrown out there. Nate Davis is another guy, probably more of a moderate contract, but he's a guy that is a tremendous run blocker. We loved him coming out of college. We saw him down at the Senior Bowl. He's a squatty, powerful type guard that is good at run blocking, but his pass blocking leaves a lot to be desired. He is not much different than a Saffold, who's a power guy. And so I don't know if it's worth it to bring a guy like Nate Davis in, a guy that when you watch his strength, we always talk about Cromer and his influence. Like when you watch Nate Davis's film, I don't get the Cromer vibes. I don't get good hand usage. I don't get leverage when it comes to the pass and the run game. I don't get a guy that's always grounded in pass blocking. So we wanted to show you guys that, like, the class that's out there and where we stand and why we picked some of the guys for this film room tonight, because we each picked around 3 guys, and I'm sure we're going to name some other ones. You guys are going to have some names for us as well that we'll touch upon, but I wanted to talk about just the class in general, because I know overall we just didn't feel that it was that good a class, especially on offense, because of how much money the Bills have or don't have, for that matter. And so you're trying to find these fits, but you're also trying to find fits financially, schematically. It's very difficult, but we think that, we picked a few guys that will fit overall in all of those buckets and categories, right, Ant?
Yeah, I think the mindset that we had last week of fit, need, and cost and value, I think that rears its head again tonight, and we're leading off with Chris Moore, wide receiver from the Houston Texans. He was one of my choices. For me, I really focused on, because I really didn't like this class overall in free agency on the offensive side of the ball, I focused more on value guys. So for Chris Moore, for me, I don't think he's someone that I'm like, you know what, sign him up for wide receiver 2 or 3 right now. But I do like some of the things that he does, 6'1", 200 pounds. He's coming off of back-to-back 1-year deals at less than $2 million. He adds athleticism and versatility to the wide receiver room. He can play the slot. He can play on the outside. He blocked a lot in Houston. He would be that guy cracking down on edges, linebackers, and safeties. And he's got more speed and savviness that I think he gets credit for. So he gets the touchdown here against the Eagles. What I really like is when he sees the rollout from, and also take into account, he's playing with Davis Mills and Jeff Driscoll throughout the year. But as Mills starts to roll out, so Moore starts to cut across the safety here. He sees Mills escape. That separation right there, the slight hand usage to separate, and then he bursts across the goal line and he gets himself open, gets into the field of vision, and he makes a really nice hands catch sliding and gets down for the touchdown. That's a nice piece for a guy who, I think he could be a wide receiver 3 potentially, but I like the depth that he adds as a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 3 depth guy. He's also got 46 kick returns in his NFL career. Granted, he hasn't returned one since 2019, so that's helps with some pieces, but that's a really nice technical catch in the corner of the end zone after he, got himself open for the QB.
Yeah, I like that. That was great. You said it. He separated using his hands. Then he worked back to the quarterback, made himself friendly, hands catch, and he even kind of dragged his right shin to make sure he got his feet down. His base was down as he was focusing on that catch. It was a really nice play, the corner, front corner of that end zone.
Yeah. Now in this one, we're going to see him come in motion. Also, side note, I hated the red helmets for the Texans on the red jerseys, but after watching this film, I'm kind of digging it. I kind of like the vibe, so that's a bonus. A little screen here from Moore. So Maddox gets his hand on Moore's jersey, but Moore has the size where he just rips through with momentum, and it doesn't even matter. Gets upfield quickly, and then you see a little bit of elusiveness, a little bit of agility, sets up the safety, gets by him, and he turns what could have been easily like a 10 to 15-yard gain into a bigger one, takes it to midfield. So he gives you some usable skill set pieces in the screen game. He's also good as a blocker in the screen game because of his size and his willingness to block. So for an aspect of this team that, is messed up for a lot of reasons when we're talking about the Bills screen game, he also offers some value there.
No, I like that. And he started with the Ravens, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
He actually, his first, he started to get real good action in the preseason with Lamar Jackson, because that's where he was on the roster. And then he climbed up a little bit and then started to see more significant reps with the Texans.
Yeah, and he's a good target and a guy that, crossed my list as well. He's definitely just kind of like a glue type guy, right? Can do a little bit of everything. If you need him in the slot, he can get in there, not just as on these, type of screens, but also to block in the box, out wide, in the, the type of structure, out of structure game. He can do either or. So he's definitely a good target for the Bills. Is that the only 2 clips we got on him
No,
right
there'll
now?
be another one. Should be number 4.
Nope. Okay, 4.
There we go, against the Dallas
All right,
Cowboys.
yeah.
So this one, so those first 2 little stamps are the same play. This is from the sideline angle, and then the other one is timed
Gotcha.
right towards the catch point. On the outside, doesn't separate, but makes a tremendous one-handed catch up the sideline against press man. His release package isn't the most technical, but he's got enough usage with his hands and the length and enough agility that he gets clean more often than not, even when he's getting like a real hard press at the line of scrimmage, not necessarily a soft shoe press, more of a true press. He's still able to get free. And then if you click, you can just let it run.
Yeah,
Doesn't
let
matter,
it
same
run.
thing. So I have it. Oh, so this is go in slow motion from here, and you'll see him just bring this in with one hand right over the shoulder. Oh, just a real pretty catch, cradles it with the left a little bit, gets the knee down. Like that's a big boy catch in one-on-one coverage up the sideline. And it's nice to have a slot receiver with that type of athleticism that you can kick outside. He can get vertical. He can make a play at the catch point in a really fantastic way.
Yeah, real quick, I just want to add, I like his hand usage as right here, as that defender is again in that soft press. You see him right there. He uses his hand. He knows that defender is punching out to slow down and take some speed off of their route. You can see him just keep his body clean, and that does help him get up the sideline at least, get a little more speed, and then concentrate on the ball along the boundary. Really nice play from him. Here's another one going in the opposite direction.
Yep. I also like that he maintained that red line really well on that last one as well. Gave his quarterback some room. This isn't anything crazy, just a quick little in. I wanted to show the extension at the catch point and the soft hands. Like this is a bullet that comes out real quick, and you see him just full extension, nice soft hands, reaches, brings it in. You saw it a little bit on that previous play with the one-handed catch, him being able to play bigger at the catch point, make contested catches, but also help your quarterback out if you're off target a little bit. I think we've seen at times with Josh Allen that sometimes when the ball isn't perfect, the weapons let him down a bit. So you have somebody who has the ability to kind of bail your quarterback out. Like this ball's a little high. It shouldn't be this high from Davis Mills, considering where this ball is thrown and how close it is within proximity to the line of scrimmage. So him being able to climb the ladder a little bit and just to bring it in, get down and get forward, I thought was a nice little piece.
Yeah, move the chains against Trevon Diggs there. Another nice catch by him. And I like, that catch radius. That's a thing, especially if you're talking third and short. You need to move the chains. It's not always going to be accurate, as you said, from Josh Allen, especially in those slants and those in breakers. They're not always the most accurate passes. So having a guy that not only Josh Allen could trust, but trusting him because he has those kind of hands and catch radius. That was another really nice play from him.
And this one here, this last one, shows his route running a bit. He's not a guy who's got a ton of deception or a ton of suddenness or snap in his routes. He wins with more power and speed, like in this one, like running the defender off and selling the 9 route and then being able to quickly just drop the feet and be able to turn and get out really quick. Like that's how he wins with more of that powerful game. He's able to, run the corner right off. I like that he kicks it into another gear. Like he shows pace in this route to sell the vertical and then is quickly able to break down and get in. Like it's not a ton of wasted movement. It's not a ton of steps. He's able to break down, chop the feet, sink the hips a little bit. Again, after that gear change around the 30, 35 to fully sell that 9 route, and then quickly, bang, snaps the feet, snaps it off. Again, that's how he's going to win. He can find leverage and he can find space, but when he's winning in his with the nuance in his routes, it really comes from more of selling that power and speed and creating some illusion because he's not going to be the most shifty, decisive route runner that you're looking for.
Yeah, and this corner knows he's got to watch deep because he's in a single high look with no safety help over the top. And so more getting into this blind spot of this corner and that coverage, which looks like some type of cover 3 match coverage, a Rip Liz look. He gets into that blind spot, as you said, and then just gets inside, but then finds this passing lane right here, right? Finds that passing lane and then adjusts to that low throw, and he's able to bring it in for the first down.
Another nice sliding catch again. So, he gets himself open, finds the lane, bails his quarterback out with a nice throw. And again, for somebody who at most is probably going to cost like $3 million a year. You have inside outside versatility, some potential kick return upside, and then the skill set pieces and traits that he has. I think this is a nice depth piece with some wide receiver 3 upside for the Buffalo Bills. Ooh, good question from Roy. I wonder if we're gonna look what's on the screen. Oh no, look how that
magic.
What?
So this is obviously someone that everyone is familiar with, Mr. Robert Woods. And what's great about him being a free agent right now is that what he does comp pick what's it called?
Comp pick bingo,
right? There it is.
So
he doesn't
say.
It is actually now, like, I type it a lot, but saying it definitely owned me. But no, he's obviously someone you guys are familiar with, and we're going to show a few clips here. He's probably going to be more on the more expensive end, but I think his value to this team could be way higher than his actual number and what he'd be getting paid. So why do I want to bring back Robert Woods at his age? Versatility, inside outside guy. You got to have it. You have it in Diggs. You have it somewhat in Shakir. They hate Gabe Davis in the slot, so he's basically a boundary guy. But his route running has not dropped off at all. It's crisp, whether he's in the slot or whether he's out on the boundary. Reliable hands has always been one of his trademarks. It's still there. He, like more on those last couple plays, can adjust to those inaccurate passes. And he stays clean, moving around zone coverage. And it's something that we didn't see last year that we've seen prior years with Dable, are those 3-level passing concepts, those snag concepts where the number 1 or even number 2 Beasley is running that little curl route versus cover 3, sitting in that hook to curl area, and he's there, or they're throwing it to the deep corner, or some kind of outbreaking route. So a 3-level passing concept. The Bills ran almost none of that last year. And I think Woods can help them in that regard and kind of be that quasi Cole Beasley role in those 3-level passing concepts. And you're going to see some of what I'm talking about here in a few minutes. Very good at showing his numbers, being QB friendly. He is such a good friend to a quarterback because he shows that body language that we always talk about, that rapport. He's easy to read for a quarterback. The quarterback knows he's breaking or when he's sitting. It's just innate with him. He's on the same page with the quarterback all the time. And of course, he still has that dog in him. And he still has that dog to get in the box, get dirty, and block on some of those dual calls, on some of those inside zone runs. Like, he's still got it all, even at his age.
He was a recent memory, from a nostalgia standpoint. He was one of those guys who left Buffalo that to me was always like the one who got away. Like, I loved him coming out of USC. I liked him when he was here with the Bills. I enjoyed the success that he had with the Rams, and now he got himself a ring, even though he got hurt in that Super Bowl year. I love the run blocking piece that you mentioned. You can use him on like Y insert plays that you would normally have like a tight end in on. He's just physical. He'll dig out safeties. He'll crack on edges and linebackers. The precision is the big one for me that you hit on. Like, because he came into the league as such a polished route runner and has continued that, even though he's gotten older, he's still able to separate and win because he's such a good route runner and he can separate in a multitude of areas. And you add that with the experience, the inside-outside versatility, what he knows, I think he would be a tremendous add from an off-the-field standpoint to the wide receiver room, but a legitimate add on the field as well. He would be my top wide from a cost-effective standpoint. I think he's my top wide receiver candidate just because of what he would add.
Yeah, of course, you'd have to move some of his money around contract-wise, but I think at this point of his career, he'd be more than willing to at least talk to Brandon Beane about a contract and playing with Josh Allen. So let's look at some of these plays. Too high look versus the Colts. You see the release at the line of scrimmage, gets that inside release. He's working the zone coverage, just a Tampa 2, cover 2 type look. But as you can see at the top of this route, the quarterback wants to throw it right about here, but he can't because this defender is sitting right in the passing lane. So what does he do? He just works to the middle of the field, finds that window, and then here comes the throw and then the big hit, and he's still able to shield the hit from the safety and catch the ball. Just really nice work. Again, working versus zone coverage. The Bills see a lot of too high looks. They see a lot of zone coverage. Getting a guy like Robert Woods that can find those lanes for Josh Allen, it's just only going to help this offense, moving the ball, throwing it underneath, but having a reliable target that can make these catches in traffic, but also when these big hits are going to come.
You saw this from Robert Woods a lot this year, the ability to see that the first window was kind of murky and his ability to get into the second and be quarterback friendly. Like it's such a nice piece to see a guy who can keep working and recognize what's going on in front of him, is in addition to the ability to separate at the line of scrimmage. He represents, I think, kind of like that safety net for a quarterback. He's just a guy who, and Tannehill did that this year with him. You trust him to be in the right spot. You know that he's going to be where you think he's supposed to be and where you need him to be. And he knows that as well. Like, he's just a real quarterback friendly target.
Yeah, and so some of the route running and some of the nuance, they have a really nice route from him up top. Pay attention to the off coverage and how he works into that area. He's just running an out route. It's nothing crazy, but watch him sell it. Look at his head down. You see him leaning forward just a little bit. He's selling a go route right now. And watch how that corner opens up and then boom, he just goes out to the flats and the ball's out. Look at the separation he creates there. That's a first down. That's a first down shot call on an out route, something the Bills haven't run a lot of under Ken Dorsey. But again, tight split, working up the numbers, just selling it. And then boom, there's the out route and throw to him. Just a really nice route. And it's nothing crazy. It's nothing complex, but his nuance to it and selling that go route. He's looking straight down the field. I need to get deep until I don't. And then breaking out to the boundary for the first down.
And he knows he sees that corner and he sees him start to open up and go vertically with him. And that's when he sinks and just pop, drops the feet and then bounces it outside. And this is a throw. We've shown how many Josh Allen throws this year where he's making far hash throws to the sideline with the arm and the accuracy that he has. This would be a nice repertoire or route to be able to add. This is, Stephon Diggs can run this route. Gabe Davis to a degree, but he doesn't have the feet and the sharpness at the top of the route that Woods has. Like, this is a really nice piece. And again, you don't have to be the fastest receiver in the world to be able to separate. You can do it with savvy and nuance and proper route running like Robert Woods did on that play.
Yeah, and here's another one of those plays I was talking about. Working against the zone defenders, cover 3 defense. They're working that spot snag concept. You see a guy go to the flats. You see a guy go vertical, and just look how he just works just around that flats defender. He knows the coverage. He just slowly works around that defender. He knows that guy's going to be buzzing to the flats with 16. So what's he do? As soon as that guy didn't even clear him yet, but he's sitting there waiting for his numbers, just inside the numbers, saying, hey, quarterback, I'm open. That guy's going to the flats. He sits right there, gets the ball, and then guess what? He gets upfield and nearly gets to the first down marker. So this is what I mean. Like, he understands the coverage. It's so obvious. He knows what coverage they're in. He's working around that flat defender, showing his numbers. That hook to curl linebacker can't get there in time. He's just open for the easy gain underneath.
You know who they hit this with a bunch? Emmanuel Sanders 2 years ago. Him using, you could tell that he was reading it. He's just waiting for that flat defender to cross in front of him, and then bang, snag right there, sits open. This route takes some semblance of timing and some semblance of understanding like what's going on with the defense. And then again, the ability to get upfield and get a couple extra yards, even though you don't have a lot of room to operate. But these are the type of routes that we've seen in this Bills offense where you got to find the spot, you got to read the defense, sit down, make the tough catch, and try and get some yards after.
All right, I love this route. Third down against the Colts. Watch how the coverage unfolds and how he attacks it. So he's right here. He's going to be working to the middle of the field. He's going to sell like he's running a crossing route on third down, and he's working against this linebacker right there of the Colts. Watch him sell the crossing route, but then boom, he understands exactly where the void is in between these two defenders. Sits right there, slides just a little bit towards the boundary so he can separate from the nearest defender. Quarterback finds him, and again, move the chains on third down. A really nice route versus his coverage. Understands the man he needs to attack and sell that crossing route to, but also who he needs to work away from into that void. And you can see it here from the end zone angle. Look at how he sells that, and then just the pivot. So he's still got some of those moves, some of that route running, and just the headiness from the shoulders up. Like, you can't teach that type of stuff. You have to experience that. You got to be around that all the time. He's still got it. That's why I think he's just a tremendous value to the Bills offense if they were able to bring him in.
I think that's part of what they missed with Cole Beasley, like that understanding and that know-how of how to work this interior area of the field. And you see Woods making that play. And honestly, that's, 23, the slot corner for the Colts there, Kenny Moore, who's one of the best in the business. He actually does a good job like reading this and coming back to it.
Trapping it.
Yeah, he traps it and he puts his head and his arm on the ball. Like, that's an opportunity where that ball can get punched out or it can get dislodged, because as far as Woods knows, he's separating from that linebacker when he pivots. He doesn't know that Kenny Moore's about to be in his ear hole as soon as he makes this catch. And he makes the catch and then turns and bang, he gets popped. And Kenny Moore makes a play on the ball, something he does all the time. You even see Kenny Moore right there. When Woods goes down, Moore does because he made a good read, he made a good play, but Woods made a better one. And again, having that presence, we talked about it so much, like that ability to attack the interior of the field. Woods gives that ability, in addition to have some outside versatility as well. So again, you get that inside outside, like you mentioned, but he allows that area of the field to be potentially opened up again and attacked like it was when this offense was really clicking.
Yeah, he would be a great addition because of, his inside outside versatility and just he could be that number 2 if something were to happen, to one of the other receivers. Like, he can fill any of the roles. Whether if someone gets hurt in the slot, he can do that. If someone gets hurt on the boundary, he can fill in there. I mean, that's tremendous value if you ask me when you're talking free, especially in this free agent class. Like, there aren't many guys in this class that can do that and add into the run game when it comes to that. So he's definitely a guy that I would think the Bills should target. I don't know how the contract would work, but Greg said that there are ways to manipulate that and push a little of the money back, but I think he'd be a great guy to go with. So who's the next guy that you brought up for this free agent class for the Bills?
Do we want to go running back or do we want to go offensive line?
Why don't we do offensive line?
Cool. So we're going to go with Mr. Jermaine Eluemunor, which is a really fun name to say. I think just off of that alone, the uniqueness of the name and how fun it is to say, he should just shoot up free agency boards. So played for the Raiders the last couple of years, 6'4", 345 pounds. He's a big boy with a very big lower half, like we were talking about before we went live. I think he could be had for potentially like a 2-year deal, maybe a 3, but I think a 2 would do it. I have him ballparked at around a $4 million per year average annual value, which I think is good value given what he offers. In his career, he's seen meaningful snaps at right tackle, left tackle, and right guard. So he's got swing tackle experience. He's got legitimate guard experience. Eric, you noted before we went live that he's kind of got the body type for guard.
Yeah, he does.
So having somebody who you can get on a $4 million a year salary potentially, who can give you depth and some startability at 3 spots on the offensive line, especially for a Bills line that we saw last year was just maligned with injuries left and right. I like that aspect. From week 7 and on last year, he had the 4th best pressure rate amongst all tackles, which I thought was very interesting. Just some other notes on him. He is susceptible to bull rushes at times. He can be a little inconsistent with his anchor. We're going to show, he has a move that he really likes. He uses his right arm as his control point. He almost like a defensive end uses a long arm, but he often goes to it a little too much. He actually uses it on this play we're about to break down, and it makes him a bit predictable, but he's active with his hands. He adjusts in game based on his opponent. He uses a jump set, a 45-degree and a vertical. He gets a lot of work in that area. We don't want to share the film. We've already shared it. So we'll watch this first play here. You guys saw it from the sideline angle. This is against Samson Ebukam, who we showed last week, who we both really like. Watch how, so he gets out of his stance early. Watch how he just, he doesn't even use his inside arm. He just completely controls the hell out of him. Look at the hand placement. He understands the leverage, and he just escorts him right around the edge and allows Jarrett Stidham to step up into the pocket. He uses that right arm a lot in this way. And again, sometimes it makes him vulnerable. Bosa got him a couple times in this game knowing that he was going to go with it, and he chopped it right down. But Eluemunor was able to adjust. But you see him it's the placement.
Kind of toying with him there.
Right? Like he it makes me think of like the older brother with the little brother. You got the hand on the head and they're trying to like hit you in the hand. But it's nice. It's under control. His feet are moving well. They're in sync with his hands, and the hand placement is real good. And then the functional strength as well.
Yeah. And I could see where this could become an issue because even though he's got good hand placement there and he's big brother here, he lost the half man relationship. That's
Yep.
what offensive linemen are taught to do. You got to win that half man relationship. You got to put, your hands on the guy and keep yourself in between the rusher and the quarterback. And you can see that guy, he won the outside edge, but because of the strength and length of Eluemunor there, he's able to ride him wide of the quarterback there. But I can see how that could become an issue, especially with those refined, upper tier pass rushers like Bosa, because they can win the half man, but they can also beat your hands.
And that's an excellent point. Like when he gets beat, it's because, again, he could get beat on some of those bull rushes and guys will get into him, but he loses with his hands and then he's almost kind of like a sitting duck. So it's something that definitely needs to be cleaned up. He's not the most mobile guy in the world, but I wanted to grab that second clip really just to show his ability to get to the second level. You see him kind of, waddling a little bit and moving his feet as fast as he can to get to Fred Warner. Again, not the best block in the world, but he gets there. He provides some obstruction, is able to widen the, that hole even further and kind of push Warner out. So he's not an athletic marvel. He's not the Spencer Browns of the world, but he's got enough juice to get to the second level and be effective.
Yeah, I like that.
Now, he battled in this game against Bosa. What I really liked, so I watched multiple games from him, including this game and the game the week before, as you highlight the ham hock.
This
that
dude, he's got a ham. Look at those thighs. Oh my God.
He's loaded there. And you see the explosion and the power in him when he jumps out of the set. He battled against Bosa and against TJ Watt in back-to-back weeks this past season. And, he got beat at times by Bosa. He had a couple reps in this game where he got absolutely dog walked by Bosa. But what I liked is he adjusted as the game went on. Bosa was killing him with speed to power, bull rushes. He beat him around the edge a couple times. Eluemunor started to reassess how he was distributing his weight and the leverage he was working with, and he started to win more as the game went on. And here's a good rep for him. Bosa gets into him again, and earlier in the game, he was just getting completely run through. But this time, he gets that right arm again, starts to lean on it, uses his left, but then is able, as Bosa goes for that, goes to lift that wrist, he stands strong, stays into the chest and into the body, and is able to just stay centered and prevent Bosa from getting through him, which was a nice adjustment, again, from earlier in the game where Bosa was able to run right through his chest.
Yeah, this was a good rep, not just from a hand usage standpoint and changing and refitting the hands, but one thing that Spencer Brown struggled with last year was anchoring. And so having a guy with ham hocks like Eluemunor to sit down and anchor like this at times, especially versus Bosa, it would be nice to have to secure the width of the pocket. Tackles are responsible for the width of the pocket. Interior offensive linemen, your center and two guards, are responsible for the depth of the pocket. You see Eluemunor do a good job versus, obviously, maybe arguably the top rusher in the league. He does a good job of settling that pocket. You can see Bosa didn't get anywhere near the quarterback there as the ball is being released. I couldn't say the same about some of the interior guys, but either way, the pass was off. Good rep from him against Bosa.
Yeah, and again, one of the best, if not the best defensive player in football, showing that ability to battle rep after rep after rep. Again, you're not going to win all the time against Bosa, but for a guy who's going to cost what Eluemunor cost, to see him battle and hang with these type of dudes and have that position versatility on the offensive line is a nice piece. This rep, we're going to see him again at right tackle against Charles Omenihu, another really good edge rusher from the 49ers, also a free agent. Yep. This one again, being able to anchor and just stalemate his man. Look at the hand position. Look at him get underneath. He's got a Menahu almost completely, exactly. He's upright. He's almost off the ground. He looks almost like the bully in school who grabs you by your scruff and kind of lifts you up against the locker. His ability to just completely stalemate Omenihu, get underneath him. Omenihu gets free, but he kind of just escorts him to the outside. And then you see the pass come away from Stidham again. This was an adjustment for him. He wasn't, when I first started watching him in this game, I was like, oh, this dude can't anchor. And then by middle of the second quarter, I was like, oh, he's adjusting. He's recognizing what pass rushers are trying to do to him. He settled down a bit, started to really lean into those ham hocks and ground himself. And we saw more success like this.
This is probably my favorite rep so far because this is a power rusher, an athletic power rusher, but he's a guy that's in the 280-pound range, right? And so he's coming speed to power right there, and Eluemunor senses it, and that's why he drops his hips. He braces for contact, but as you said, his ability to take that power, absorb it with his lower half, anchor down, and then create lift.
Transfers it.
He totally takes away all that power. He absorbed it, and then he totally took away any type of secondary move there by creating that lift and bringing him up off the ground. We always talk about Cromer and creating lift, whether it's in the run or the pass game. This is a perfect example of that. Create that lift with your hands and your legs from the ground up. Lift that guy up, eliminate him as a pass rusher, regardless of what type of rush it is. That is a great rep from him.
And if you watch on that one, he refits his right hand to get, like, initially it's outside, and then as Amenahue starts to go, he repositions it, and immediately drops it down and gets it underneath and uses that as that anchor. Again, he loves going to that right arm. It's a huge piece for him. This last one for Mr. Eluemunor again, against Bosa, he's going to that right arm again, but the ability to get it on the placement. I just wanted to really highlight that, again, it sometimes gets him in trouble, but how much he really relies on this move. Like, he uses both hands initially, but then he relies on that right arm. It can get him into trouble, but I wanted to showcase it again just so nobody thought I was crazy. He really relies on that piece.
Yeah, that's, again, you're absorbing that power, and it really says something about him, especially because it looks like he has like a brace on that too, on that right arm. I don't know if those are just pads or some kind of brace.
No, it is a brace. And it's even more evident in the Steelers game right after this too.
Right, but this, I mean, obviously one arm, that type of strength, you got to give him props there. And I know he's a big guy, so he's absorbing that power initially as that bumper, right? So that initial power coming from Bosa is coming through that right arm, and then you see it go down into the ground, and that's when he's able to anchor down a little bit towards the end. So yeah, I mean, that's definitely his move, and it's something that we kind of talked about with Ryan Bates from the interior, right? How he would get those big pass rushers and get them in the collar. It's along those same lines, but Eluemunor is using it against these edge rushers, which is interesting, and it plays to his strength because of his long arms and in the power that he has, not just in his upper body, but in his lower body as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think there's one, if you go to the little clip marker that's underneath the U and undo, 2 over, I think there's one more. Yep, this is just a nice cut block on Bosa that I liked as well. Just chops him right down and takes him right out. He failed at this a whole bunch against the Steelers, a multitude of times, like some real ugly ones. But it was nice to see him get one right on this one. The Raiders had him doing this a bunch. The field was also an issue against Pittsburgh, but I just wanted to show that piece as another, technical aspect of his game. Again, for somebody who I think is going to cost around $4 million a year, ballpark, on a $2 million deal, I think you could do a lot worse than him.
Yeah, no, he's a solid pick and a common name that Bills Mafia, throws at us. We get tagged in so many different tweets throughout the day, but he is a name that continuously comes up, which is why we both looked at him. I think be a little outside of the Cromer archetype, especially if we're talking tackles. But again, it's not just Cromer. Bean's obviously involved in this, so it'll be interesting to see, because there are only so many guys that are willing to take contracts to come to Buffalo to compete for a spot, because they're not guaranteed a spot. So a guy like Eluemunor had a good year last year, right tackle. When the Bills offer him, they're not going to say, hey, the right tackle spot's yours. They're going to say, no, you need to come in and compete. There is a chance that you may not win it. So, that is on the table when it comes to bringing in tackles, but he's still in that, again, he's in that tier where it could be enticing at his age, at 28 years old, that, and he believes after that season he can win out at right tackle and have a shot at a championship. I mean, it'd be in his best interest in many ways, and you can at least sell that. So he's in that tier that would consider it. But also, as you said, he's a value guy that won't cost a lot.
And that's a huge piece for us with everything that we're going for. Again, it's about need, it's about fit, but that cost is not king, but it's a tremendously important piece to the fabric of every conversation that we're having. Question from Justin. Would we move him to guard, or is he competition for Spencer?
Yes. He's both.
You
bring him in. As I just said, you bring him as competition for Spencer. And if he loses, then you have a guy you can put at guard somewhere. You got to have versatility. Cromer talks about it. Bean talks about it. Every offensive lineman that gets interviewed talks about versatility. If you're not versatile, you're just not going to be playing all that much, because they can only dress so many guys. So, I mean, I personally think that he could be the answer to both of those positions in many ways, which again adds to his value.
I would take exactly. It's the value. Like I would be cool with him in a competition with Spencer Brown at right tackle. I'd also be very cool with Darnell Wright at pick 27 in the first round, but that's not a conversation for now. But yeah, I'd be comfortable with him in a competition there. Or, not that Bates did bad at right guard, but he was really successful at left guard in 2021. Maybe Eluemunor, you put him at right guard where he had success a couple of years ago, and then you kick Bates back to left guard. The point is you have options potentially. And then even if he doesn't win either, you have depth at 3 spots baked into one guy, which saves roster spots and saves money. So there's a lot of upside in that way.
Yeah. And so the guy that I chose it's another Cromer retread, like Saffold, but in many ways, this was a guy that Cromer almost like, I don't want to say handpicked, but he was involved in drafting and developing this guy, David Edwards of the Rams. Had a great career at Wisconsin as a tackle. And that's one thing Cromer targets when he's targeting prospects or guys to sign. He likes guys that come from traditional good offensive line programs like a Wisconsin. I want to say Oklahoma, but Bills fans have PTSD when it comes to Oklahoma offensive line. But he likes guys from Oklahoma because they have guys that are drafted relatively quite high, some with mixed reviews. For the Bills, definitely bad reviews. And Cody Ford. So, but he does like those type of programs that have really established offensive line programs. That's what they're known for. David Edwards came from Wisconsin, a program like that. So taller guy at tackle, leaner. You can see he's a little lighter. He doesn't have the ham hocks of Eluemunor, but plays with really good balance. You're going to hear me talk about it a bunch about how good his hands are, how he creates leverage. He can get under the pads of the defender like Eluemunor, like you saw on that pass rush snap. He can do some of the same things in the run and pass game. Works quite well to the second level. He's a decent enough athlete to get to the second level, but his hand placement is consistent. His punches are independent, or he can two-handed punch, but he prefers independent punches. And he's always refitting those hands. Like when we get to the pass blocking reps, definitely keep an eye on his hands. Obviously something that Cromer does when he is scouting these offensive linemen. But he's a very good one-handed puncher, and he can do it, with both hands, and he strikes quite well. And you're going to see some really nice reps versus Grady Jarrett in that regard. And then he just scans the 2 and 3 man pass rush stunts and games really, really well. So let's start off with this run play first. And he came from the Rams, and of course they for many years have run these combination blocks, their zone runs, whether it's inside or outside zone. You see 73 is Edwards, and just look at the hip to hip, the knee to knee. I mean, textbook with no boom there. They're working to the second level, but look at the displacement that they create, and those guys cannot work around them. That's the type of blocking and teamwork. And that's the thing with Cromer. He doesn't necessarily pick the best athletes or the most athletically gifted players. He wants guys, all 5 of those guys, working together as a unit, as a team. And so you can see this 2-man combination block is just butter. It is so good. It's textbook. There's no leakage, and then you're able to run right off of them.
The run right off of them point is the most important for me. Like, you make this decision so easy for the running back because 59, that linebacker at the second level, because they're hip to hip, he has to pick a gap. Like, he either has to go left or right, and whichever he picks, Henderson gets to cut off of. So 59 jumps inside. So Henderson's like, okay, cool. Let me just put my foot into the ground. And then Edwards gets into that linebacker. No boom continues on the edge. You get the block up top on Thompson from Cooper Kupp. And everything's well blocked from the Rams, which, they usually have a well-schemed, running group going back to Cromer and then continuing after. But it starts with that double team. Like, the hip to hip is so important. There's no leakage. The defender has to choose. He's in a lose-lose situation, and you make it easy for your running back. It's a nice stress-free rep for the running back.
Yeah, and so I talk about his hand usage, and you see it here. Watch the punch. Again, this is against Grady Jarrett.
Grady Jarrett is awesome.
Yeah. He's one of the better defensive tackles in the league. And look at that punch, the inside hand punch right there. Look at the placement. It's perfect. It's perfect. And watch how that affects Jarrett. So now, that's an aggressive set. And so maybe Jarrett had a different plan in place. Well, because of that aggressive set and because of that punch and its placement, it interrupts his pass rush plan. And so now look at this placement, and then look, now he can sit. Like, that's a beautiful rep. Look at his hands, they're inside. But again, aggressive, great hand usage, punch, and then sit and the ball's out. Like, that's the type of pass blocking that Josh Allen needs inside. Yes, we want him aggressive. We want our offensive linemen to finish near the line of scrimmage so you keep the depth of the pocket, again, which is set by guys like Edwards in the interior offensive line. But you also want a guy that's technical. And Edwards is technical when it comes to hand usage, especially techniques that Cromer likes to use.
Hands. It'll be forever burning in my brain. The placement is so beautiful from that initial punch. You can tell it kind of stuns Grady Jarrett a little bit. Like, he's kind of like the way he swats off Edwards, almost like a bee that comes out of nowhere. Like, you're like, what the hell? Like, and then, but again, so he swats, and then as he swipes those hands, what does Edwards do? Just repositions the hands and gets him on the shoulders. And then you see Jarrett starts to work again. This is against one of the best defensive linemen in all of football. Grady Jarrett might be the best kept secret in the NFL because the Falcons have been terrible, but he is phenomenal. And he even gets under Edwards here a little bit and starts to drive, but Edwards has the hand position. He's able to anchor. He mashes with him, and he maintains the depth of that pocket. This is a really technically sound rep that starts with a win early on with a move that, the Grady Jarrett, I don't think, was expecting. It catches him by surprise. It's technically sound. He sees it through to the end. Real quality rep.
Here's another one. This one versus the Cardinals. So here he is right here, left guard. Again, watch the aggressive set and watch that punch. Boom. He jumps him right away, right near the line of scrimmage. Now we're just suffocating your plan, taking away your strategy. You see that initial punch, and then watch him just sit down. Like, you see, he's got cloth already. Now he's just sitting down, using that core and hip strength. And that guy's just neutralized. And he finishes near the line of scrimmage. Mitch Morse always talks about that, finishing near the line of scrimmage. That keeps the depth of the pocket. Edwards can do it. Even when he's aggressive, he's able to stay in the fight and finish near the line of scrimmage. Just a really nice play from him there. Again, with that punch, with that aggression. But this one is even cooler because, you see the aggressiveness versus the Cowboys. We talked about the Cowboys defense last year, how aggressive, how angry they play, and how much they like to attack. You see the punch by Edwards right there. Again, kind of stuns that pass rusher, but it doesn't end there. You see the edge rusher, Dante Fowler, loop inside, right? So he passes that edge rusher, interior rusher right there. He passes him to Noteboom. Noteboom squares him up, takes him over. So now Edwards and Kilgore are working 2 versus 2 here. You see him go to pick up this defender right here, but he doesn't feel Kilgore, who is not their starter. Brian Allen is generally their starter at center. So he's filling in for Brian Allen. He feels Kilgore kind of hanging heavy on 72 there. So what does Edwards do? He loops around onto Fowler and pushes him wide of the spot. The other guy does get pressure on Stafford, but watch this throw from Stafford. This is just ridiculous. It's almost like a no-look over the middle.
That's wild.
It's silly. But I just love the awareness by Edwards on this 3-man game against him. And he felt and sensed that Kilgore was a little heavy on that interior guy. So he went and picked up Fowler, who, again, turned that corner, but Edwards got a piece of him and allowed Stafford to step up and make a play with the ball.
At that point, you've almost kind of lost the rep. Like, the game has gotten you up front. The fact that he's able to recover and still make a play on Fowler that allows Stafford to succeed is such an important piece. We've seen the Bills offensive line this past year, and even a bit in 2021 as well, get gamed up with just simple stunts, like simple 2-man games, let alone a long loop like this where Fowler is coming from the C gap and looping all the way back through the opposite A. That type of athleticism is also kind of why we highlighted Dante Fowler in last week's episode, which if you haven't catch, you definitely should, for our defensive free agent targets here in the film room. The mental piece has been something that has plagued the Bills' offensive line at times. And then with Roger Saffold last year, I think he had the mental game to pick it up, but he didn't have the physical ability to get there and answer. Roger Saffold would be dead in the water against this type of action, right? Even just basic 2-man games, like a tech stunt, he was donezo because of his limited mobility. So Edwards, you got somebody who has the awareness to recognize it, but then the functional athleticism to be able to pick that up. That's not easy. He's bumping over completely into, technically a whole nother gap to get outside of the center. That's a really important piece to have on the offensive line, especially with how we've seen teams game up the Buffalo Bills offensive line at times, and it's been rough. Now, so we each have a running back
Yes.
going forward here on this episode, and I went with Mr. Samaje Perine of the Cincinnati Bengals, somebody who I think is going to be cost effective. $2 million a year, like a 1 year deal, maybe a two, maybe he climbs up to 2.5, 3 million. The running back market is flooded in free agency, but even more so in the NFL draft. There's a lot of value. So I don't see a
Yeah.
ton of guys like cashing in big deals, especially somebody who is more of a backup. With Perine, you get a 3-down back. He's got good feet. He's not a burner. Again, he's 235 pounds, but he's smart in how he reads his block. You see the touchdown here on this screen. He just sets everything up. Like, he doesn't get ahead of the blockers. He lets everything play out. He recognizes the space that he has coming out of the backfield, which he times well. Gets a good pass from Burrow that leads him in front, and watch him set it up right there. He cuts inside at the 20 to get Minka to dip inside, immediately pops it back outside, and he set up a little wall for himself,
Yeah, it's
and
great
he just
blocking.
coasts in the end zone. Like, so much about working in the screen game isn't about speed or great agility. It's about letting the play breathe. He has a very good sense for that.
Yeah, this was filthy. This was a
Yeah.
really good play because it's something we've been talking about for years. The Bills aren't that good at the screen game. Part of it's because of Josh Allen. Part of it's because the offensive line over the years. Some of it's on the running back not selling it, but you can see the patience just working down the line of scrimmage. Does a good job, and that patience and him not just screaming out wide allows his offensive lineman to get a piece of the guy that's trying to chase him right there. And so he gets caught in the traffic. That allows him to get outside of the tackle box, get out into the open field. But then you see those guys get down the field and get blocks down the field to spring Perine there. Just really good patience. And as you said, he's a good contrast type running back to James Cook and Nyheim Hines. That's the type of guy. These are the type of guys that we're looking at in Perine, and to kind of give you a peek behind the curtain, Dante Foreman, the guy I picked. But I just love what Perine brings because of his size, his veteran experience, and just little plays like that. Like, you can't really put into words how important that patience is on a screen. It's something that why Josh struggles with it, because he's not disciplined with his eyes. He's always like going right to the target when he needs to sell it and let it breathe, like you said.
Yeah, and he has that savvy, he has that understanding, that natural feel to let those screens breathe. And he's somebody that, again, it's not just going to be because you had a good running back in the screen game that'll help the screen game, but I think he is a plus piece in that regard to help that game kind of get off the ground. Another touchdown here from him on this one. Again, he's got 3-down back potential. He can run the ball, he can block, he can receive out of the backfield. We saw one touchdown for the first play. We're going to see another one here. So again, he's more of a power dude. He's not a burner. He's 235 pounds. He doesn't have a ton of wiggle. He's not shaking dudes in space, but he has some shake to him, like you see on this play. And what he does is he'll use that little bit of shake that he has to create a shoulder to attack, almost similar to kind of like how edge rushers create that soft shoulder. And you'll see him as soon as he catches it here. Watch him give the little hesitation to get Spillane to break down, and then he attacks that shoulder, puts the stiff arm right into the shoulder. He knows with his body type, with his strength, he's able to run through arm tackles, and honestly, he can run through a lot of shoulder tackles, especially from defensive backs, but he sets that move up to be able to attack the shoulder, gets through it, and then you see him finish strong. He knows he's going to get popped. He beelines it to the goal line, gets hit by two dudes, but he's bigger than both almost combined, and he gets another touchdown here.
Yeah, that's nice. And I like that little point about him, creating that mismatch in the open field and creating that almost like you said, a short edge to create that separation and that broken tackle. And he can do it in very subtle ways. And again, that's because he has a great understanding of angles, his own body and size, but also, just how a guy's going to break down to make a tackle with him in the open field. And that was a really nice play for the touchdown.
He knows who he is. That's such a great point from you. Like, he's not trying to shake dudes like he's Barry Sanders. He knows what he is. He knows what his game is. Here's one of him in pass protection. He's sufficient in pass pro, or even sufficient plus at times. He will get beat, but he often makes the right read. He's not a stalwart or like the best pass protecting running back in the NFL, but he's smart. He knows where to go. On this one, he originally was aligned to our right side, but Burrow's left. He gets motion up there. Burrow changes the protection. They did this a bunch against the Steelers in this game with the looks that they were bringing. And you watch him just step right up onto Miles Jack, and he completely owns this rep. Like, he gets underneath. He even repositions the hand. Look at the right hand. So left from our vantage point, but Perine's right hand, it gets knocked off initially. He just gets it right back on, gets underneath, has control with the left the whole time, and then you watch the hands and the feet moving in sync, stays in front of Miles Jack, helps put him to the ground a little bit. Yeah. It's nice being able to put your running back into the A gap and have him just meet a dude who's mugging that gap and have him not leave the line of scrimmage.
Listen, the Bills running backs, as it's constructed right now, Cook and Hines, they're not the best pass blockers. And from the shoulders up and also execution. Cook came along last year when it came to cutting guys, but the Bengals took advantage of him in that playoff game when it came to identifying the rusher or not identifying him properly. Devin Singletary actually was probably their most consistent pass blocker the last few years overall. So a guy like Perine that has that type of body mass to, as you said, stick his head into the freaking gap right there and stone linebackers, like, that's important again, because you can see he's finishing again near the line of scrimmage. They're going to need a back like that, whether they get him in free agency, like a guy like Perine, or in the draft. They're going to need a guy that can block. So when you guys are doing your scouting, they're going to need running backs that can block, or else they're going to have to come up with other ways to pick up pass protection, 6-man pass protections, whether it's keeping in an extra tight end, or the big talk is 12 personnel and then leaving that other tight end in, letting Dawson Knox go out. So there, you have to have 6-man protections. And so you're either going to have to insert a tight end or insert a running back. And right now, the Bills running backs aren't great pass blockers. They're going to need someone like Perine.
Yeah, you have that reliability. Again, he can receive out of the backfield. He can pass protect a little bit. He can also run the ball, so it's not somebody who, if you put him in, he's completely tipping the hand. This one is a run from him. You're going to see nice little jump cut. Oh, just slams. Yeah, you can feel that one from the sideline angle. Like, he slams Justin Reed down. So gets the handoff, sees that the inside is completely mugged up and gummed up.
Nice run blitz.
Yep, very well timed, good design. But jump cut, he gets out the back door, and Justin Reed has him. But again, Perine breaks down, gives him a little hesitation to force Reed to stop his feet. And then what does he do? Again, he attacks the shoulder. He's so good with that stiff arm, getting it into the chest or getting it into that shoulder and using his power, using his leverage and being able to go through that shoulder. So again, he's not the fastest, but he knows how to create angles and play that to his size and his strength. And he just absolutely murks Justin Reed on this one for a really good game.
Yeah, and those are the type of plays, those stiff arm plays, we all know. Those are tone setters. Defensive backs don't want to tackle guys like Perine, especially if they know that they're going to get shocked with that stiff arm, and that just gets a crowd into the game. And so, those are tone setters for the offensive players.
Yeah, and he's also a dude, again, who can get it up in between the tackles with that size, so somebody who's a bigger back in short yardage or who can contribute inside as well. So it's a nice piece to see what he can do. And this last one, just wanted to showcase the pass protection again. This time he's stepping up from more of a traditional lineman out of the backfield and just picking up the blitzer right ahead of him. Same thing. Gets inside him, forms him up, squares up, head. This is like, Erik, you were running back, like when we used to do the drill back in the day on the sled where you're hitting, your hands on the shoulders and your helmet right in the chest, all 3 points, and being able to push the man in and lift it up, and then feet. Like, he forms him up, head and both hands contacting all at the same point, stalemates his man, escorts him to the side. He even seals him a little bit at the end. Oh, thank you very much, Y. Appreciate you. Oh, Y had some really positive words for me in disguise coverage last night too. So I appreciate the hell out of you back-to-back nights. Why? Thank you very much. So he controls his man, gets underneath him, anchors a bit, and then even at the end, he turns him and seals him a little bit, as if we needed that, icing on the cake. Look at him just turn him and kind of seal, like, just
create
because.
That passing lane for Burrow. No, that's great. I love how he steps up again, right near the line of scrimmage. You don't want that passive pass blocking. You want that violence and aggressiveness. Does a good job keeping that inside foot up and bracing for that contact. He sorted it out really well with his guard there too, because you saw the looper and Frank Clark come inside, and there was a moment of truth right there. He's like, okay, should I be taking Clark? Nope, I'm going to stick to my assignment. Clark gets picked up. He does a good job. Again, finishing near the line of scrimmage. You can't say that enough. That is really what the issue was with the Bills' offensive line last year, and why Josh Allen felt the need to, extend plays, go out of structure a little more often than what he had the prior years. And a lot of that had to do with guys not being able to finish the line of scrimmage. So it's nice to have running backs that can contribute in that manner as well.
Absolutely. And I love that piece, that you mentioned the peak, having the awareness, because it's not just enough to be able to physically execute. You have to have the mental awareness as well. It's got to be both. And he has them both. And it's really encouraging. Oh, this is really cool. This is from Miami Dolphins guy who's in here in the film room from Fins Up 305. He says, you guys do an amazing job with your film breakdowns. I really enjoy watching them. That's awesome. Thank you very much.
No, that's awesome. We, again, this is the offseason. And so some of these free agent targets aren't going to go to the Bills. So having guys like Fins Up in here to obviously give us some great compliments, but also watch some film with us, because these are guys that they could be getting too. So we hope that this content isn't just for Bills fans. We appreciate all the Bills fans in here, but having guys from other teams come in here and watch film with us, we love that too. Because, normally when we're watching film through the season, it's, the Tuesday or Wednesday after a game, and then you have some of those opposing fans coming in to crash the party. Especially Fins fans, they're very, very passionate, just like our Bills fan base. And so we appreciate you coming in here and then those kind words as well, man. Thank you.
That's awesome. Erik, your running back target, you mentioned him a little bit.
Yeah.
He was actually mentioned a bunch. I was trying not to smile when I saw it. He was coming up in the chat a whole bunch. Who do we got on the screen?
Mr. D'Onta Foreman. I know he's a guy that a lot of Bills fans have mentioned, and I know Greg and Aaron talked about him last week in their show. And again, they're coming on in half an hour. They're going to be doing the flip side. We did defense last week. They did offense, and they're flipping it this week. So while we're doing offense right now, they're going to have defense here in about a half an hour. And this is one of the guys they talked about. And I want to show you why they talked about him and why Bills fans are interested in this type of back with this guy's size. A no-nonsense type runner, downhill type guy. He's actually quite slippery for his size. You're going to see some of the footage here of him just slipping tackles quite easily, not just using the power that you would think a guy of his size would use. Very good vision, and he anticipates daylight really well. And you're going to see a lot of these runs are from under center. I think that's the next element in the Bills offense. They need to add a little more. We saw some of it, mid-zone runs, duo type runs like this duo run. We saw it last year with Cook. He broke off some really nice runs from mid-zone. Singletary was more the duo runner like this play you see here. But this is a play that actually Singletary got a really big run on last year, but it's a downhill run duo. You see this guy shooting this gap, so there's really nowhere to go front side. And so he finds daylight so well. And I called him the best duo runner in the league last year. He just finds those gaps. You see him find the backside gap, get out the backside, and then make a move on that safety. Now, he doesn't have the breakaway speed, but this is really good vision for a running back of his size, and really not someone you think that would have this type of vision and anticipation or wiggle for that matter, right, Ant?
Yeah, I mean, again, like you said, he is a bigger back. I remember him coming out of Texas, and then, from a fantasy perspective, he was one of those dudes with the Texans his first couple of years where he was that like sneaky sleeper pick in round 12 or 13 of fantasy drafts where people were like, "Yo, D'Onta Foreman's going to be the dude." And he got hurt; it just never really worked out. But this is a good run. Like you highlighted that free runner coming in, it's on Foreman to make him miss. Like that's what it is. It's similar to, if the quarterback is hot with the blitz coming off, like the quarterback's got to beat the hot, and Foreman has to beat this free runner coming through. And I love how he puts his foot in the ground. He just gets upfield so quickly. Like you wouldn't expect that kind of burst. And he changes the angle just by putting his foot in the ground. And then we get a move at the third level. He gets chased down, but it's after like a 35, 40-yard gain. Exactly as Joe says, that's good wiggle for 6'1", 235 pounds.
Yeah.
Like he's a big dude. Again, what's nice with him, in the same way with Perine, but their skill sets are different, but it's still a nice complementary piece to Cook and Hines and what they have right now. And you add that downhill aspect with some power and some burst. That's a real attractive aspect.
Yeah. And again, under center, him on the dot in the backfield. Look at the box, a really decent sized box right here. And then zone run. That's obviously Cromer's bread and butter. Again, James Cook, he excelled from under center on the dot and these mid zone, outside zone runs. Just look at the anticipation. So running backs are reading outside in. So you can see this is out. There's a guy right here, Levante Davies. He's hoping that Foreman comes right into that gap. But you can see Vea is getting washed right here, right? He's getting washed, but of course it's Vita Vea. And so Foreman, he senses him. He feels that wash coming. But watch as he cuts it back. He also senses that Vita Vea is cutting back on that play. So you can see the helmet of Vita Vea go back to this side. So Foreman just gets north and south. He gets north and south in a beautiful manner, finds that daylight, and then breaks off a really big run. Again, this is incredible vision for a big guy. And, yes, he dealt with some injuries when he was with the Texans. And he was kind of a slow burn developmentally and getting on the field and getting an opportunity. But when he got an opportunity with these Panthers last year, he capitalized. And so adding this type of vision and size to the Bills running back room, sign me up tomorrow.
He took over once the Panthers traded McCaffrey, and then the Panthers started to win a little bit, and everybody was making the jokes that like McCaffrey was the one holding back the Panthers offense. And it was because like Foreman was just doing things like this, like his ability to finish at the end, right? Like he's breaking tackles 30 yards downfield, and then he's, taking it as far as he can go. Like that's not even necessarily like why you're bringing him in. It's this initial point at the line of scrimmage, like the vision, the pacing. I love how he cuts it back immediately. Like again, on these zone runs, you're the running back. You're just trying to flow like water and you go wherever that opening is. And he sees the opening, but then he makes that read on Vita Vea. Like Vea makes a great play. He's getting washed, is able to stop, get back on the outside. And Foreman's like, oh, okay, you're popping over there. Cool. I'm just going to put my foot in the ground and get upfield. Then I'm going to beat Mike Edwards, who has an angle on me by putting my foot in the ground again. Like Edwards, like this isn't bad initially, but Foreman bursts upfield and then he carries two defenders, breaks the tackle, and continues to try and put some finish on this run. Again, this is a big body dude. Like you're not expecting him to be, 5 yards in a cloud of dust, but he gives you a little bit of that in addition to, oh, that move is filthy. Like just the movement at the line of scrimmage and the vision and the being able to put the foot in the ground and get north and south. It's real pretty.
I mean, this is textbook like bag drills as running backs.
Oh, good call.
You can see that defender beat his block and Foreman's dead to rights, but watch the feet. Watch the lateral cut right there, the reset of the feet, and now he's still square. His eyes are up. He's looking at that next level, and guess what? Now he's cutting it again. So he's stacked a move on a move. Those bag drills from the combine, this is it right here. You see how they at the combine when they shift the bag and then you have to make a cut and then you're immediately on a bag. You have to cut back inside. Textbook. You see it here. And again, you don't expect that from this guy. It's just natural. It's all coming to him and he's able to make moves on top of moves. And then again, reset the line of scrimmage, make people miss. The box is stacked. Like the box is stacked against him here. And he's just making guys look silly.
Great cut at the line. Be able, and like you said, it like he's chaining moves together. He's stacking moves on top of moves. Really good piece. Justin comes in with the question saying, would Foreman cost around $4 million? If so, isn't that only $1 million cheaper than Singletary? Is he worth that? I think he'll fall somewhere in the $4 to $5 million a year range. But again, that's still cheap for a running back contract. And if you're getting him and pairing him with James Cook, that's a pretty cool dynamic duo. It's a little bit of that thunder and lightning piece. Eric, I also like running backs, and I think the Bills need to run the ball more. But I think that would be worth it. What say you?
Yeah, I do. And I think, as much as we loved Devin Singletary, he's just not the build of this guy, right? He's not the size of Foreman. And so it's a different dynamic. And as much as we love Singletary, he can do these kind of moves, but he doesn't have that size. You need some of that size when you're doing the short yardage stuff. And just, I think this is the contrast they need when it comes to these downhill type runs and some of that vision. I didn't think Foreman had vision like that. Here's another one. Watch this one. The defense, again, look at the box. Do you think they know runs coming? There's an extra offensive lineman and then two tight ends over here, right? They know runs coming, but they don't care. The Panthers don't care. Foreman doesn't care. Another duo run. So they're all trying to wash these guys down to get a one-on-one with the running back on the corner out wide here. and watch what Foreman does. So he makes that jump cut right there, and now he's one-on-one with the corner out here.
Mm-hmm.
He's breaking, this tackle near the line of scrimmage. But so this corner comes up, and he's probably like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to go tackle this guy. But it's there's some finesse to his game. Watch his cutback right here. Look, oh my goodness, fine daylight. There's the anticipation. Look at like how he cuts back inside here, gets north and south, and he gets tackled there. But finding that daylight is, I did not see that coming. When I first watched this play, I'm like, holy cow, this is all set up to go against that corner. But if he goes out there and maybe he breaks the tackle on this guy, but here's Justin Simmons waiting as a secondary run defender. So, and you can see all these guys, they all know
Jewel is flowing over the top. Yep.
Yeah. So he senses this. He finds that daylight. It's definitely a strength of his. He gets north and south and gets a really nice game.
Also a really good tackle too from Alex Singleton, number
For sure.
49 from the Broncos.
He's a free agent.
Yeah, he is a free agent. If he doesn't bring Foreman down, like he might still be running. He bends this back so quickly that it almost makes you think that he was like setting this up the entire time. Like he either set it up purposefully or he reads it in the blink of an eye, because it's not like, oh, where should I go? Oh, there's an opening. He sees it and is like, bang, there it is. Like he reads everybody flowing over the top. You almost have three Broncos defenders like completely stacked with Simmons, Jewel, and then the defensive lineman right in front of him. So he sees the wall that he has set up and again, puts his foot in the ground, gets north and south. The suddenness, the decisiveness, the ability to get upfield. He runs behind his pads. Like again, it's not that he's the best running back on the open market. It's the dynamic that he adds, right? And that's what we're trying to ID for this Bills team, like a cost-effective dynamic that the team does not have, that gives them more versatility and multiplicity and an element that they didn't previously have, but that they need to get over the hump.
And to kind of cap this segment off with Foreman, he is what I call in my notes. He is a 4-minute killer. So at the end of the game, like, kind of like this situation, you have to run. They know you're going to run. You're setting up the formation to tell them you're going to run. You want to run the clock out. You need a few first downs. These are the type of runs that you need at the end of the game. This is the type of running back you want punishing the opposing defense. And so I think he'd be a great contrast and fit for the Bills running back room. And also that guy that can carry that role that Singletary had as a short yardage guy, some in the red zone, but also that 4-minute killer.
I think that was a good piece too with, mentioning Singletary. Like he and Cook were different, but they were also similar in the same way. Like it was a weird backfield from a skill set perspective in terms of what you had, where is if you have Cook with a Perine or a Foreman, there's more contrast, but in a good way. Like it just increases what you can do there and how you can attack defenses. Like maybe one week, you need some of that power run game. And, Cook, I really like James Cook. I know you do as well, but James Cook isn't bringing that power run game. All of a sudden you have a bigger bodied back who has the ability to get north and south and has the vision and the football IQ to function in that world. In addition to the frame and size, it adds a different dynamic. It allows you to just stay multiple and stay versatile and be able to throw rock, paper, scissors.
And I was torn because initially when I had the running back picked out, it was Alexander Mattison. And I know a lot of Bills fans were like Mattison and Foreman. Like these are the two guys that the camps that you had to pick. And I had Mattison first, and for a couple of reasons, and I'll note them real quick for the people that do like Mattison. There wasn't much of a drop off, right? When Dalvin Cook was out. Mattison came in, I think only like 75 carries total, but when he came in, he was explosive and there wasn't much of a drop off. And in many ways, his talent is starting caliber talent. He could start for several teams. And listen to some of these stats. I sent them to you during the week and we're like, oh, those are some awesome stats. So 43.2% of his runs went for 5 yards or more, which was 4th overall among all of the running backs. That's the type of on-schedule running back the Bills need. Like, you get those light boxes and he's going to get 5 to 10 yards into that second level no matter what. I'll take that all day. 28.3% of his runs went for first downs. 3rd overall among all the running backs. Like, that's crazy. He's explosive. He's efficient. Hard-nosed runner. Very strong, explosive hips when he makes those lateral cuts. But he just bounces off of tackles, too. He's, like, chaotic in many ways. Behind the line of scrimmage, he's calm, he's efficient, he gets to the gap, and then when he gets through the gap, he's kind of chaotic in a good way. That makes him very difficult to bring down with just one tackler. So what are your thoughts on Mattison real quick before we wrap this up?
I like Mattison. I'm going to say to you out here what I said to you when we were texting about him. Like, he was somebody who I've had on my fantasy team for like the last 4 years, actually every year since his rookie year, because I knew that if anything happened to Cook, Mattison was going to step in and he would get like RB1 type carries, and he functioned well in that world. You read some of the advanced metrics, and I think that goes with what you would see, especially with how the Vikings offense was. Like, they were a run first team these past several years before O'Connell took them over this year. And you saw an effective runner who could function in those zone runs, could also function in some gap. I also like how effective he is around the goal line. He's a dude that you trust to get it in for, like, once you get to the 5-yard line, like, you just expect him to kind of finish and get in the end zone somehow. Yeah. You shared one of the clips with me where he literally like bounces off 3 dudes and gets into the end zone. Like, I love also the way that you framed him. Like, I think he could get paid and be like not in a timeshare and like a complimentary back. Like, I think he could legitimately be an RB1 for a lot of teams.
And that's exactly why I didn't roll with him, because Greg had mentioned that he thinks that Mattison would probably get the bigger deal. So I was like, all right, I don't want to pick the more expensive, deal. Yeah. So, but it was hard because the clips that I was sending you, I'm like, he was the guy. And then I changed it like maybe yesterday, like last night.
Yeah, you did. You texted me late last night and you were like, okay, so here's what I'm going with a big like laugh out loud at the end. Because I knew I was like, oh, you flipped on Mattison. Like, but again, the metrics are good. The tape is good. And I think what's also nice, I mean, you get this with Foreman a little bit too, but there's not a lot of mileage on the Mattison tires. So even though he's like 4 years in, he's still fresh. Like, he doesn't have a lot of wear and tear. He's kind of just been sitting in the garage, like waiting to get out into the open road. So I think that's a nice, intriguing piece for him as well.
Yeah. So free agency targets, we just wrapped it up. And so where do we go from here? So next week, which is March, 15th, so a week from today, obviously free agency starts next week. And so hopefully by Wednesday, there are some acquisitions from the Bills, and hopefully, if that happens, we will be breaking those guys down in the film room. So I think we're going to be calling upon Chris Trapasso to come in and do a film room with us on some of the acquisitions, have him talk about some of those Bills targets and guys that they brought in. Hopefully they add a few guys.
Watch them do nothing. They just
I know, jinxing us right now.
Right.
But Chris is going to come in hopefully and break down some film with us and break down some of those acquisitions.
It'll be Bean after dark, and like we'll finish and cover one Buffalo with Greg and Aaron will finish, and then like at 11:45, like they'll make some huge move. We're all just like,
some
really
splash, yeah,
right. And then we'll have to do an emergency pod at like midnight and just break everything down. But yeah, that'll be what it is for next week. And just in case people aren't aware, next week's a big week. Like, you get legal tampering that starts early next week, and then officially, players are able to sign on Wednesday, but you'll start seeing on Monday and Tuesday a lot of, this player is expected to sign with this team. You'll see the breaking news. I think NFL Network is doing the free agency frenzy show on Sunday. So there's going to be a lot of news trickling in early next week. Awesome plug from Chris.
Too.
Yes, we will be live tomorrow night again for Buffalo Sabres playback, and potentially live this Saturday as well, as the Sabres take on the New York Rangers Saturday. Know that Sabres have had a rough couple of games and have hurt themselves in the playoff race, but hope is not lost. We're really going to see what this team is made of. So yeah, we'll be live on playback tomorrow night to watch the Buffalo Sabres game live starting at 7:00. And if you don't know anything about that, stay tuned to the channel for information. Also, just keep an eye out on Twitter, Slack channel members, anybody and everything. We'll be sending out the link for that. You can join us.
Playback is awesome. I know a lot of you that probably joined us the first few weeks of the NFL season when we were allowed to do this with the NFL footage. It's cool. You guys are watching the game with other Bills fans, other Sabres fans. You're watching it live and you're watching the same stream. So it's pretty cool. So like, I live in the middle of nowhere. I don't have anyone to watch Bills or Sabres games with. So you can sit in and watch the same stream with all these guys that are in the chat, like right now. And you have 2-3 of us. It's you, it's Chris and Adam up there. And you even bring other guys in, Chad, you brought Chad and Anthony in to commentate as well on the Sabres games. It's really cool. You can turn the volume down of the actual commentators of the stream and turn us up. So check it out. Search Cover One, and we'll put the link in the description, and it's all over our handle, Twitter handle. It's a really cool feature to have, because it's almost like Manning Cast, right? It's almost like Manning Cast for just average Joes like us and guys that want to watch games with us and add a different dimension to the commentating.
That's exactly what it is. Like, it's just like the Manning Cast. Like, we're sitting here in a room like this, and the game is live streaming on the screen, and our little video icons are at the bottom. There's a full chat on the right, and it's just, we'll bring up people from the chat to come up live on video, and we'll talk with them. Like, we have guests rolling through, but at the end of the day, it's just, it's like hanging out, watching the Sabres game with however many of your friends, except you don't have to leave your house. All you have to do is click a link and join in.
That's cool.
It's a pretty cool experience, pretty awesome. As was this episode of the Cover One Film Room. Pretty cool, pretty awesome. And again, identifying several potential free agent targets over these last couple of weeks on the offensive side of the ball, the defensive side of the ball, that could potentially help this Buffalo Bills team in 2023 and beyond. As we enter, Erik, you've used this word several times, a pivotal offseason, not just for 2023, but for the future. And we really wanted to ID players on both sides of the ball that this team could go after. And, hopefully next week we'll have some, players to break down some film on.
Yeah, we're marching on, and we have some cool shows lined up with some awesome guests. Again, Chris, hopefully next week, a couple weeks after that, we're going to have Sal Capaccio live at the league meetings, but also talking about some cool topics with us. We have some awesome guests lined up this offseason to keep things moving forward. But we appreciate everyone tuning in tonight. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, join all of our premium content where, if you become an insider with Cover One, you'll get access to, paywalled content on the website. But more importantly, join our community, our Slack channel. Talk about that real quick before we wrap in.
The Slack channel is honestly like one of the coolest things. I mean, Chris Kepner, who is on the team now for us here at Cover One, like started in the Slack channel. Like, it's an awesome way to communicate with football fans and Bills fans, also fantasy football pieces as well. Like, it's one of the main calling cards for the One Pass, and it doesn't have a lot of the toxicity that you find on Facebook or Twitter or the traditional social media platforms. It's a really cool, engaging community for really good football talk and Bills talk. And it's just one of the many pieces for One Pass, like you brought up there. Like, you get that insider access, or, some of the clips that we're talking about for Alexander Mattison, or some pieces, like some of those things, those get shared in the film channel in Slack. Like, so there's just a Bills talk channel. There's just a fantasy football channel. There's a film channel. There's like all these different avenues to really kind of build a community that, Cover One is really aiming for and going for. Stop lying, Chris. Chris has a great show, guys. You're a liar, Chris. The show was terrible. Just kidding. It was fantastic. Yeah, it's really awesome. It's there's a lot of awesome perks and pieces with One Pass, but the Slack channel, it's what everybody always goes to. That's funny from Roy. I'm a Slacker, but never been in the Slack channel. That's the one, like, anytime I talk to a premium member, like anytime Michael Lucas is watching our live episodes, he's always like, the Slack channel. Like, again, it's just a really cool piece without a lot of the toxicity that you get on other social media areas. And it's a credit to you, Erik, and to this brand. It's something we're tremendously proud of. And man, that Slack channel, the premium content, it's going to be jumping, because again, next week, free agents are going to start trickling in officially. Before we know it, it'll be NFL draft time, and then we're going to need to break down potential prospects. And as we start to really narrow things down, and then we'll be breaking down the actual picks. And then before you know it, it'll be rookie mini camp. And man, it just feels like yesterday the Bills lost to the Bengals, but here we are already going into the second week of March. And before we know it, it'll be regular season time for the NFL. So we appreciate you folks riding with us here live on this episode of the Cover One Film Room. As Erik mentioned, if you enjoyed this content, please, and thank you, drop a like on this video. It goes a long way towards helping us to track and trend in front of more eyes and ears. If you're listening on one of the podcasting apps or platforms, that's cool as well. Please rate and review. And whether you're listening on one of the podcasting apps or platforms or watching here on YouTube, please, and thank you, subscribe to the channel if you see fit. Word of mouth is always awesome too. Tell your family and friends and loved ones about how awesome this show and this channel is. We hope you and your family and friends and loved ones are all doing well, staying safe, be kind to one another, take care of one another, be safe this weekend. If you live in Buffalo and you're going to the home show, I will see you there on Saturday because I'm going. I go every year and I think it's fantastic. So maybe we'll get some engagement out and about. Be safe. Strap in for free agency madness and frenzy that starts next week. And for myself, Anthony Prohaska, for Mr. Erik Turner, this has been another episode of the Cover One Film Room. Godspeed, and as always, go Bills.